I finally played South Park, The Stick of Truth, and if you've ever wanted to be dropped right into an entire season of Trey Parker and Matt Stone's classic animated sitcom, this is the best way to do it. Farts, warts, and all. So stick around for a flatulence flinging, Nazi alien aborting, Lord of the Rings aping episode of No-stalgia. The year is 2014. Millions of people were dumping giant buckets of ice on themselves for ALS research. Pharrell's Happy was played so often and in so many places, probably made you irrationally mad. Unhappy, even. As did that goddamn hat. Like, for some reason right now, I'm thinking Arby's.
We have them.
And Game of Thrones had just had what is widely considered by many to be in the running for its very best season. Gaming was also incredibly high fantasy focused in 2014, with games such as Shadow of Mordor, an Arkham-style Lord of the Rings game, Dragon Age Inquisition, and Dark Souls 2 popping up within those 365 days. So needless to say, it was the perfect time for a South Park video game based on similar tropes as the beloved show. I'm usually not the biggest fan of high fantasy, unless we're talking about eating a couple edibles and watching Tifa beat the shit out of a giant robot, but I gotta say, a full season's worth of South Park in a game is really all I have to hear to sign the fuck up. But the real question is, does this Parker and Stone first attempt at writing a game hold up to a stinky Nagasaki? Well, let's get right into it. South Park: The Stick of Truth is a 2.5D JRPG Lite developed by the South Park creators directly alongside Obsidian. You know, Obsidian. Yeah, that Obsidian. And for the first time in South Park gaming history, Trey and Matt were directly involved in the entire process of making this game. Chef's Love Shack? This is not. The goal from the get-go was to make this look, sound, and feel like one long-ass episode of the show, and if that is the sole litmus test for this game, it passed with absolutely flying colors. And if that sounds good to you, just go ahead and turn this off and go play it. But this isn't a television show. It's an interactive, 10 to 15 hour long video game. And from that point, it mostly gets it right.
Mostly.
Development was anything but smooth though, much more akin to the inside of Mr. Slave's ass cavern. Work on the game started 5 years prior to its release in 2009, but after THQ went belly up, Ubisoft picked up the rights to the game in early 2013, zipping up the development 1 year later for a March 4th, 2014 release on the PS3, Xbox 360, and PC. Overall, the game sits at around an 83 between all versions on Metacritic and a user score closer to an 8.5 between them. Critics felt the game was one of the most successful adaptations of a TV show ever, with Games Radar saying that the game was, to South Park, what Arkham Asylum was to the Batman franchise. Many reviewers loved the comedy and praised it as one of the funniest games ever to be released. Now the gameplay was much more of a mixed bag, as many referred to the combat as shallow and repetitive, but just as many referred to it as deep and rewarding. The game ended up being quite successful, with well over 5 million units sold as of April 2021. It did well enough to warrant a sequel, The Fractured Butthole, brilliant name, which I have already played a few years back, so you probably won't be seeing a nostalgia on it. Props were many, including nominations for Game of the Year, Storytelling, Narrative, and its musical score. Now, IGN listed the pixelated Canada at number 98 on their list of top 100 unforgettable gaming moments back in 2017, and I gotta goddamn agree, because that was too funny. So alright. Y'all, listen. In grade school, there were two types of kids. Kids who got to watch South Park and
Fucking losers.
Luckily, I was one of the former, though. At 9 years old, I'm not so sure I should have been, and was a huge fan of the first 8 or 9 seasons of South Park. It was always so on point with its commentary on current events, its biting humor, and complete lack of reverence that it would be hard not to appreciate if you were a 90s or an aughts kid. I did drop off watching it with any regularity around the time Comedy Central stopped airing it alongside new episodes of Chappelle's Show. Like, yo, what a fucking legendary hour of television that was. So while I do love South Park, I was no longer watching it regularly into the 2010s. While Stick of Truth is full of great jokes, hilarious callbacks, and that South Park vibe that is really impossible to replicate, the game falls in a few different places for me gameplay wise, so let's just go ahead and start there. You start out the game building and naming your character that, no matter what you type, Cartman will ultimately just call douchebag. You get to choose from 4 different character types: fighter, thief, mage, and Jew. I mean, of course I picked Jew. Like, who didn't pick Jew? That's just too fucking funny. The gameplay loop will feel familiar to anyone who has played a JRPG with a few more hands-on twists. You walk around town performing quests, be they side or story related, finding loot, fighting random encounters, which you can see on screen and instigate, allowing for first actions a la Persona, and a variety of gated off places that require abilities you get throughout the game. The meat of the gameplay is a turn-based battle system that is good, solid, not spectacular. It's a simple combat system involving a max of 2 party members on your side of things with about 4 or 5 enemies max. Depending on the class you choose, you will be more melee, ranged, or magic focused, but the game is dreadfully easy on the medium difficulty and not significantly difficult on the hardcore option either. The game does let you switch on the fly though, which is nice, and may be worth starting on hardcore if you know anything about JRPGs. I played the majority of my playthrough on normal, since I like these videos to reflect what the average player will see. Each turn you get to make your actions, one primary and secondary, and almost all actions require some sort of QTE. Now, if you played Legend of Dragoon with the addition system, most melee and some of the ranged attacks are pretty much just like that. You hit X or square when the light flashes to do additional damage or to complete the combo. But it's you and your party members' more powerful attacks, the one that require PP or mana, that often require more specific actions to maximize damage, and if you miss some of these, you'll do very little damage or potentially even take a little bit yourself. You'll find that in this game, debuffs and status effects are incredibly effective, which is nice. Like, often in games such as Final Fantasy, I skip status effects entirely because they're not super relevant. In Stick of Truth though, I relied heavily on bleed. This made the game feel pretty fucking easy, even without being particularly spec'd or maxed out well. And regarding that, the level cap is 15, and its relatively straightforward approach to combat makes it feel fun, even enjoyable in most cases, but definitely ended up getting dull near the end once you hit about level 11 or 12. I wish there was an item or a way to skip the QTEs and scenes you have to see over and over. At one point, Stan said to me, "We know we're gonna win, can we just skip this?" And
I fucking felt that.
Now, outside of battle, you have a good deal of customization. You'll gain experience points that let you designate more skills, and becoming friends with people on Facebook leads to more perk points, which allows for a variety of little buffs. You find weapon and armor strap-ons. Yes, strap-ons. What else did you expect from South Park? That augment things such as your status ailments, HP, or recovery. As you play the game, you learn new abilities in the forms of new farts that you use out in the field to destroy the background objects, light enemies on fire or blow them up, teleport around via anal probe, and more. Now, Randy tutorial can suck it though. Like, once you figure it out, really ain't that bad, but I literally had to watch a video, which is absurd for a fart move in a South Park game. The UI and the traversal aspects always felt incredibly clunky to me, even a dozen hours in. They never really meshed or felt very intuitive. Some sorting options for your skills and clear indications as to what you're highlighting would have went a long way as well. This all coalesces to a game that feels like it had all intentions in the right place but failed to really nail the landing. Now, I had a good time, but the 11 or so hours it took me to wrap this up felt like it was just enough. But you seriously shouldn't be here for anything except the story. Your mileage with the show, both your appetite for it as well as your knowledge of the jokes, will probably make or break the experience. I mean, personally, I thought it was funny as fuck, but Like I said before, I used to be a big South Park fan and recognized a lot of the winks and nods. We'll keep this very synopsis-like, cause like many South Park storylines, it's the journey, not usually the destination. So if you think this sounds dope, it's worth it for the absurdity alone. You start the game as the new kid in town. He's running from some shady past, right? Immediately though, you fall in with the South Park crew. Butters, Princess Kenny, and good old Cartman. Cartman being Cartman, named you douchebag. Cause of course he does. There's an artifact you have in your possession called the Stick of Truth. Totally titular, a big deal in their little play world, but boom, elves raid, and they take it. Clyde screws up big time and gets booted from the gang. With some serious moves, douchebag manages to snatch it back from Jimmy the Bard. Now things go from weird to what the fuck level very quickly. That night, aliens snatch up douchebag and others. But hey, you're not one to chill in an alien cell. With Randy's help, as well as a powerful sphincter immune to the aliens' probes, you crash the whole spaceship right into the town mall. Now the next morning, giant crash site and a very, very sus Taco Bell cover story from the government. Cause why not? Meanwhile, the stick's gone missing yet again. Both Cartman and Kyle are like, join my side. No, join mine. Your next mission? To rope in the goss. But plot twist, an alien goo from the crash site turns folks into Nazi zombies because
South Park.
you'll traipse all around town, including to the abortion clinic where you'll mock abort one of Randy's turds and have a battle with Khloe Kardashian's giant aborted Nazi fetus. All to make sense of this weird green sauce turning everyone into brain-hungry Heil Hitler maniacs. Battle lines are drawn at the school, and the twist? Clyde's the villain now with an army of zombie Nazis. As the chaos grows, they call in the big guns, the girls. After some wild, ball-chopping Canadian adventures, the girls are finally in. A massive showdown happens at Clyde's tower. Randy then drops that there's a nuke set to blow up the town. Douchebag in hero mode shrinks to disarm it by going deep into the asshole of Mr. Slave. Now this might have been the nastiest, most hilarious part of the game to me. That and a certain boss battle in your parents' bedroom, but
Yeah.
there's a battle with zombie chef. Clyde throws a tantrum and then government agents pop up because, you know, again, South Park. Apparently they've been chasing douchebag, who's a social media whiz with close to 6 billion friends on Facebook. Too nefarious to be left alone, the government wants your secret power. The climax? Princess Kenny goes rogue, turning Nazi zombie after you kill Kenny. You bastard. And douchebag breaks the ultimate rule. He farts on Kenny's balls. I mean, don't ask. The day is saved, the Stick of Truth gets retrieved, but they all agree it's too much power for a kid's game and throw it into the pond.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Now the writing is just hilarious, irreverent, and as wild as any in South Park's heyday, so if you're down with that, you'll feel right at home. The graphics work fantastic and stand out as another example of making this as South Park-esque as possible. You are literally playing South Park. There is some weird screen stutter if you run around town and a couple little odd visual glitches I noticed, but outside of that, graphics hold up really well. Combat takes place directly in the field and the in-game combat effects look great. Not much to say about the graphics. If you've had a pulse since the late 90s or beyond, you've seen a screenshot or clip of South Park and it really nails that look. I will note though that the Canada level was a pleasant surprise and feels like exactly what the South Park writers would do if they wrote Canada into a video game.
Welcome to Vancouver, the San Diego of Canada.
Sound in the game is fantastic. Now, when I say sound, what I really mean is the voice acting. Everything is voiced entirely by the original cast, lending itself to a very authentic experience. Some voice lines in battle get repeated way too much, but it's kind of expected in a game of this nature. Outside of that though, the voice work is rock solid and really makes you feel like you've jumped into the show's world. Sound effects are good, adequate stuff. Neither stood out as particularly good or bad for me. I will say, the farts sound nice and juicy. Some of the effects for the abortion sequences, Mr. Slave segment, anal probing, and your parents' coitus had me in tears though. The music is good, appropriately epic for a high fantasy, Lord of the Rings type. I think the music itself is awesome, but makes the mistake of having it re-loop every time you come in and out of combat, so you hear Cartman singing about cheese and Jews. At least that's what I always heard. Does anyone know what he actually says? Because I don't actually know. Anyway, you find that you don't hear enough of the music. Listening back to it now on YouTube,
This shit slaps though.
composed by Jamie Dunlap himself, who also composed the music for the entire series. The music has many soaring string sections, choral movements, reed flutes, timpani, and other such orchestral percussion that really make you feel like you're charting out on a massive journey. Not to mention the songs that have lyrics are fucking hilarious and really harken back to the show in the best way. Howard Shore would be proud. So the question to be asked is South Park: The Stick of Truth worth your playthrough today? Yes, but with a major caveat. For an incredibly successful series with the cultural impact South Park has had, it's sort of amazing how niche this game feels. You have to like South Park and you have to be able to stomach the JRPG elements that are both great and sort of just okay. It feels like there should be a flowchart for if you would get into this game. Are you a fan of South Park and JRPGs? Then absolutely play it. Are you a fan of JRPGs but don't know or care for South Park? Probably skip, since the JRPG aspects feel underbaked. Are you a South Park fan but don't like JRPGs? Now, this is the most interesting combo. I'd say pick it up anyway, since it's super cheap at this point. The game is so funny that you can deal with some of the less impressive parts and feel good about doing so. All in all, I loved my 11 or so hours with the Stick of Truth, but I feel like it's probably enough. I had a few dangling side quests, but don't feel that compelled to go in there and finish, since I'm capped at the level 15 and don't really see my post-game fun there. Stick with the Stick of Truth though, and you may find that you leaf with a bunch of laughs. It is a journey worth embarking upon. Oh yeah, you can go ahead and hire me, Trey.
I'm funny, I know it.
Thanks for watching. Please click here for more nostalgia videos and follow me on any and all social media at TheGamersician. Check out my Discord too, it's in the link below. Peace.